The crystalline spires of Azura's Grand Bazaar caught the light of 3 suns, scattering rainbow fractals across the marketplace. Marcus Webb had visited 100 alien trading posts in his 5 years as an independent merchant, but none quite matched the ethereal beauty of this place. The entire plaza seemed carved from a single massive gemstone, with vendor stalls arranged in spiraling patterns that somehow made perfect sense to the local shoppers, but left him perpetually turned around. He'd come to purchase rare stellar silk, the kind that shifted colors with the wearer's emotions, highly prized back on the frontier colonies. What he hadn't planned on was causing an interstellar incident. "Sir, please step back from the display," a voice called behind him. Musical and sharp with authority, Marcus turned, his hand still resting on the edge of an ornate merchant's table he'd been using to steady himself after being jostled by the crowd. Before him stood a woman, or what appeared to be a woman, though her lavender skin and the delicate crystalline horns curving from her temples marked her as distinctly non-human. She wore flowing robes of deep purple that seemed to shimmer with contained starlight, and her silver eyes regarded him with barely concealed disdain. "I apologize," Marcus said, quickly removing his hand. "I was just—" "You have profaned a sacred merchant's stone with your touch," she interrupted, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet marketplace. "These displays are blessed by the Temple of Commerce. Only registered merchants of Azura may make contact with them." Marcus glanced around, noting that every vendor stall did indeed have similar crystalline tables, each pulsing with faint inner light. He'd seen similar setups on other worlds' religious commercial practices weren't uncommon in this sector. What was uncommon was the degree of offense on this woman's face. "I truly didn't know," he offered, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm new to Azura. If there's a purification fee, or—" "There is no fee that removes dishonor," she replied coldly. "I am Seraphine Velfara, keeper of the Western markets and third daughter of the High Council. You have violated sacred law in my territory." A massive figure emerged from the crowd behind Seraphine, easily 7 feet tall, with the same lavender skin, but covered in ritual tattoos that seemed to writhe across his muscular frame. His eyes, pure black without visible irises, fixed on Marcus with predatory intensity. "This is Kale, my sworn champion," Seraphine continued, a hint of satisfaction entering her voice. "By law, he will defend my honor and the sanctity of our commercial temples." Marcus's stomach dropped. "You're challenging me to a duel? Over touching a table?" "It is not merely a table, human," Kale rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "It is consecrated ground. Your ignorance does not excuse your transgression." The crowd had formed a perfect circle around them now, their chittering conversations creating a background hum of anticipation. Marcus caught sight of several locals exchanging what looked like betting tokens. Apparently, public duels were entertainment here. "I'll fight," Marcus heard himself say, surprising even himself with the steadiness in his voice. Seraphine's eyebrow arched delicately. "You accept ritual combat? How unexpected. Most humans on Azura are merchants and scholars, not warriors." "I wasn't always a merchant," Marcus replied, thinking of his youth spent in the fencing halls of New Geneva, the colony world where he'd grown up. His instructor, a stern woman who'd competed in the Olympic Games back on Earth, had drilled footwork and blade work into him until they became second nature. He'd never expected those skills would matter again after he'd taken up trading. From within his jacket, Marcus withdrew his personal blade, a sleek rapier with a titanium ceramic composite blade, more decorative than functional by most standards, but perfectly legal to carry in most systems. He'd worn it more as a connection to his past than anything practical. Kale's laugh boomed across the plaza. "You face me with a needle? I will break you in half, little human." A vendor approached, bearing a ceremonial weapons rack. Kale selected a massive curved blade, its edge gleaming with what Marcus suspected was a molecular sharpening field. Marcus kept his rapier. "The duel proceeds until first blood or surrender," Seraphine announced, her voice carrying over the crowd. "Kale fights for my honor and the sanctity of our temples." "What does the human fight for?" Marcus met her silver eyes. "For the right to apologize properly and continue my business in peace." Something flickered across Seraphine's face, surprise, perhaps, or respect. It vanished quickly behind her mask of aristocratic disdain. "Begin," she called. Kale moved with surprising speed for his size, the massive blade whistling through the air in a horizontal slash meant to cleave Marcus in two. Marcus dropped beneath it, feeling the wind of its passage ruffle his hair, and backed away quickly to reassess. The champion was fast. But Marcus noticed something crucial. Kale's attacks, while powerful and swift, followed predictable patterns. They were ritual movements, practiced forms rather than adaptive combat. Marcus had seen similar tendencies in fencers who learned only through kata, never through actual bout experience. Marcus tested this theory with a quick feint toward Kale's left side. The champion responded with a textbook defensive sweep, exactly where Marcus expected. Good. Predictability was exploitable. They circled each other, the crowd's murmuring growing louder with each pass. Marcus caught glimpses of Seraphine, watching intently, her expression unreadable. Behind her stood three women in simpler purple robes, likely her handmaidens or attendants. They watched with equal intensity, though their faces showed more open concern. Kale lunged again, this time with an overhead strike that would have split Marcus from crown to groin if it connected. Marcus sidestepped, letting the blade crash against the crystalline ground where he'd been standing, and responded with a quick cut across Kale's forearm. First blood, except Kale's skin proved tougher than human flesh. The rapier's point barely scratched him, drawing only a thin line of violet blood. "First blood to the human," someone in the crowd called out. "The strike was insufficient," Kale growled. "This continues." Marcus's heart raced. He'd hoped to end this quickly, but clearly the locals had different standards for first blood. He'd have to actually injure this man to satisfy honor, and his light blade wasn't designed for that against an opponent with mere armored skin. Kale pressed his advantage, launching a flurry of attacks that forced Marcus backward across the plaza. The crowd parted smoothly, maintaining the fighting circle as they moved. Marcus parried desperately, each impact of Kale's heavy blade against his rapier, sending jolts up his arm. This wasn't sustainable. Marcus needed a new approach. Then he remembered his instructor's words. Speed defeats strength when strength becomes exhausted. Marcus changed tactics. Instead of backing away, he closed distance, moving inside Kale's reach where the massive blade became a liability. He delivered a series of quick cuts and thrusts to the inside of the elbow, behind the knee, the inside of the wrist-targeting joints where even tough alien skin was vulnerable. Kale roared, trying to create space, but Marcus stayed close, his rapier dancing in patterns the champion couldn't counter. This wasn't ritual combat. This was practical fencing, designed to disable an opponent efficiently. Finally, Marcus saw his opening. As Kale raised his blade for another overhead strike, Marcus lunged forward in a perfect extension, his rapier's point finding the gap where the champion's ribs met his sternum. He drove the blade forward with all his strength, feeling it punch through tough skin and slide between bones. Kale's eyes widened in shock. His massive blade fell from nerveless fingers, clattering against the crystalline ground. He looked down at the rapier, protruding from his chest, then back at Marcus, with something like respect dawning in those black eyes. "I yield," Kale gasped, sinking to one knee. Marcus withdrew his blade carefully, helping the larger alien lower himself fully to the ground. "Someone get medical assistance." He called to the crowd, but the crowd had gone utterly silent. Every face stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to horror to something else entirely calculation. Marcus turned to face Seraphine, intending to ensure Cale received proper care. The aristocrat's face had drained of its lavender hue, taking on an ashen gray quality. She stood frozen, her silver eyes locked on him with an emotion Marcus couldn't quite identify. Then, slowly and deliberately, Seraphine Valfara sank to her knees before him. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked, genuinely confused. "The law is absolute," an elderly vendor called from the crowd, his voice carrying authority. "Lady Seraphine's champion has fallen in ritual combat. By the ancient codes of Azura, she and her household now belong to you as bound companions." Marcus stared. "That's insane. I just defended myself." "I don't want. The law cares nothing for what you want, human," the elder continued. "To refuse them would bring dishonor greater than death itself. Lady Seraphine is yours, as are her personal attendants." Behind Seraphine, the three handmaidens had also knelt, their heads bowed in submission. Marcus looked at Seraphine, still kneeling in her shimmering robes, her silver hair now disheveled around her face. Their eyes met, and for a moment, he saw past the aristocratic facade to the woman beneath, proud, trapped, and utterly bound by traditions she couldn't escape. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered. "Nevertheless," the elder said, "it has. The bonding must be acknowledged, or chaos will follow." Marcus had never felt more out of his depth, and he'd once navigated a dying star's gravity well with failing engines. The crowd dispersed slowly after medical attendants carried Cale away. He would survive. They assured Marcus with meaningful looks that suggested this outcome changed everything. Now Marcus stood in the center of the crystalline plaza, with 4 alien women kneeling before him, waiting for something. "Could you please stand up?" Marcus asked Seraphine, uncomfortable with the entire situation. "All of you." Seraphine rose with fluid grace, her handmaidens following suit. Up close, Marcus noticed the fine patterns traced across her lavender skin, not tattoos, but natural markings that seemed to shimmer, like oil on water. Her silver eyes studied him with a mixture of resentment and resignation. "We should not remain here," she said quietly. "Magistrate Voren will hear of this within the hour. He will not be pleased." "Who's Magistrate Voren?" One of the handmaidens stepped forward, shorter than Seraphine, with darker purple skin and eyes that held flecks of gold. "I am Nyx, my lady's senior attendant. Magistrate Voren has been attempting to force a bonding with Lady Seraphine for 2 cycles now. He claims legal right through her father's debts." "Debts my father never actually owed," Seraphine interjected bitterly. "Voren fabricated documents after my father's death. But his position gives him power to make such claims legitimate in the lower courts." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, a habit when stressed. "So by defeating your champion, I've inadvertently rescued you from a forced marriage?" "Bonding," Seraphine corrected. "We do not marry as humans do. And yes, technically, though I suspect you view this as more burden than rescue." Marcus couldn't deny that. "My ship is docked at the northern port, the merchant section. We should go there. At least it's defensible. You have a ship?" The second handmaiden spoke, taller than Nyx, with pale lavender skin, almost translucent in the sunlight. Her voice carried genuine interest. "The Wandering Star," Marcus confirmed. "Converted cargo hauler. Not luxurious, but it has enough crew quarters for this situation." "I am Vesper," the tall handmaiden said, inclining her head. "I have some knowledge of spacecraft systems, if you require assistance." The third handmaiden had remained silent until now, watching Marcus with intense curiosity. Her skin was the deepest purple of the group, almost violet, and her crystalline horns were smaller, barely visible among her silver-white hair. "Aurora," she introduced herself simply. "I serve the household in matters of discretion." Marcus wasn't sure what that meant, but nodded anyway. "Right. Well, let's get moving before this Vorin character shows." Up, they made an unusual procession through Azura's winding streets, a human merchant in practical trader's clothes leading 4 elegantly robed alien women. Marcus noticed the stares, the whispered conversations that followed in their wake. News traveled fast in marketplaces, regardless of the planet. The northern port sprawled across a flattened plateau. Ships of various designs and origins docked in organized rows. The Wandering Star sat in berth 47, looking exactly as Marcus had left it, slightly battered, well-maintained, and thoroughly unremarkable. Perfect for a merchant who valued reliability over flash dot as they approached, Seraphine spoke quietly. "You should know what you've truly claimed, human." "Marcus," he corrected. "My name is Marcus Webb." "Marcus," she repeated, testing the foreign syllables. "You should know that I am not merely a market keeper. My family has guarded something for 20 generations. Something Vorin desires more than wealth or power." Marcus palmed open the ship's entrance ramp. "Maybe we should have this conversation inside?" The Wandering Star's interior reflected its owner-organized, practical, with touches of personality in unexpected places. Books filled one wall of the common area, real paper books collected from a dozen worlds. A fencing trophy from his youth sat on a shelf, beside alien artifacts he'd gathered during his travels. Vesper immediately gravitated toward the ship's technical displays, her fingers tracing the control interfaces with clear familiarity. Nyx and Aurora moved through the space assessing security points and exit routes professional. Habits that suggested they were more than simple handmaidens. Seraphine waited until Marcus sealed the entrance before reaching into her robes. She withdrew a small object wrapped in cloth that seemed woven from solidified light itself. Carefully, she unwrapped it. The artifact inside took Marcus's breath away. It appeared to be a crystal, roughly the size of a human heart, that pulsed with inner luminescence. Colors flowed through it, like liquid deep purples bleeding into silver, shot through with veins of gold that seemed to carry actual light through the crystal structure. Looking at it too long made Marcus's eyes water, as if his brain couldn't quite process what it was seeing. "The heart of Azura," Seraphine said softly, "created in the first age, before my people even had written language. It contains the genetic memory of our ancestors, every thought, every discovery, every moment of our species' evolution." Marcus resisted the urge to reach out and touch it. "And Vorin wants this. He believes it will grant him legitimacy," Nyx explained, moving to stand beside her lady. "Legend says the heart bonds with its keeper and their chosen mate, enhancing certain qualities." "What qualities?" Marcus asked. Aurora answered, her voice carrying an odd intensity. "Fertility, longevity, strength of will. The exact effects vary with each keeper, but all agree that a bonding sealed with the heart's blessing creates an unbreakable union." "Vorin has been trying to force Seraphine into accepting him," Vesper added, not looking up from the ship's systems. "If he could complete a bonding ceremony with the heart present, his claim would be absolute. No court in Azura could challenge him." Marcus looked at Seraphine, understanding dawning. "But now I've claimed you through combat law, which means you are the only one who can legally bond with me," Seraphine finished. "And through that bond, become keeper of the heart yourself. Vorin cannot touch either of us now without violating our most sacred laws. But he'll try anyway," Marcus guessed. "He'll try," Seraphine confirmed. "Vorin doesn't let laws stop him when he wants something badly enough. He'll find loopholes, technicalities, or simply use force and apologize later." Marcus sat heavily in the pilot's chair, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. Outside the viewport, Azura's three sons began their complex dance toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. "There's something else," Nix said quietly. "The bonding law requires ... acknowledgement, a ritual that confirms the relationship between keeper and kept." "What kind of ritual?" Marcus asked warily. The three handmaidens exchanged glances. Vesper spoke first. "It's called the ceremony of recognition. Without it, Vorin could claim the combat was invalid, that you defeated Kale, but refused to accept the consequences, making you an oathbreaker." "And oathbreakers have no legal standing in Azura," Aurora continued. "He could challenge your claim, force Seraphine into his bonding ceremony, and take the heart." Marcus looked at Seraphine. "What does this ceremony involve?" For the first time since they'd met, Seraphine's composure cracked. A faint lavender flush colored her cheeks. "It single quotes S... intimate, not in the way humans might assume, but it requires physical acknowledgement. Touching, anointing, declarations of bond status before witnesses." "It's not sexual," Nix clarified quickly, seeing Marcus's expression. "But it is personal. Very personal." Marcus stood and paced the small common area. "So if I don't do this ceremony, Vorin can claim I've rejected you, making the duel meaningless. And if he gets his hands on you and this heart, he becomes one of the most powerful men on Azura," Seraphine finished. "Possibly in this entire sector. The heart's keeper holds influence that transcends wealth or military might." The ship's systems hummed quietly as Marcus processed this. He'd come to Azura to buy silk. Now he was somehow caught in alien politics involving ancient artifacts and forced bondings. "What do you want?" he asked Seraphine directly. "If you could choose, free from all these laws and traditions, what would you want?" Seraphine blinked, clearly not expecting the question. No one has asked me that before. I'm asking now." She moved to the viewport, staring out at her crystalline city. "I want to be free to choose my own path. To keep the heart because it's my family's responsibility, not because some magistrate forces me into a bonding I don't want." She turned back to Marcus, her silver eyes intense. "But that choice was taken from me the moment you defeated Kale. Now I'm bound to you by laws older than our civilization. Unless we find a way to break those laws," Marcus suggested. "There is no breaking them," Aurora said firmly. "Only fulfilling them or facing chaos." Vesper looked up from the control panel. "Marcus, I've been monitoring local channels. Vorin has issued a formal challenge to your claim. He's demanding you present yourself and your bonded household before the Council of Arbiters within 2 days, or forfeit all rights. Can he do that?" Marcus asked. "He's a magistrate," Nix replied. "He can do almost anything. And the Council will lean toward his interpretation. He has most of them in his pocket through debts or blackmail." Marcus's mind raced through options, most of them terrible. "Okay, what if we just leave? I file departure clearance. We get off Azura and deal with the fallout from space." "They've already frozen your departure clearance," Vesper said, gesturing to a flashing red indicator on the control panel. "Magistrate's authority. You're not going anywhere until this is resolved." "Of course they did," Marcus muttered. Seraphine moved closer to him. Close enough that he could see the intricate patterns flowing across her skin like living art. "There's another option. We complete the ceremony of recognition tonight, before Vorin can interfere further." "That just trades one set of chains for another," Marcus protested. "Does it?" Seraphine challenged. "You asked what I wanted. What I want is choice. You've shown me more respect in one afternoon than Vorin has in 2 cycles. You asked my preference instead of simply claiming what law says is yours. Perhaps... She hesitated, vulnerability showing through her aristocratic mask. "Perhaps being bound to someone who sees me as a person rather than a prize, isn't chains at all. Marcus met her gaze, searching for deception or manipulation. He found only honesty and desperate hope. "The ceremony," he said slowly. "Explain exactly what it involves." Nyx stepped forward, assuming the role of instructor. "It takes place in purified water. We can use your ship's facilities. The keeper and the kept share space, acknowledge each other's bond status through touch and oath. Witnesses observe to confirm legitimacy." "The witnesses being?" Marcus asked. "Us," Vesper confirmed. "The household members. We must all participate in the acknowledgement, bonding ourselves to the new keeper as well." Marcus looked at each of them, Seraphine with her silver eyes and desperate hope, Nyx with her steady competence, Vesper with her technical expertise, and Aurora with her mysterious intensity. 4 alien women whose lives had just been turned upside down because he'd touched the wrong table. "If we do this," Marcus said carefully, "I need something understood. I'm not interested in owning people. On my ship, we're partners. Crew, you have opinions, preferences, choices. This ceremony might be required by your laws, but it doesn't define how we actually treat each other." Seraphine's expression softened. "You truly mean that?" "I do." "Then let us perform the ceremony," she said formally, "and perhaps discover what kind of bond we might build beyond the requirements of law." The Wandering Star had a small but functional bathing facility, necessary for long-haul merchant runs. Aurora and Nyx prepared it according to tradition, filling the compact space with steam and the scent of oils they'd brought from Seraphine's household. Vesper configured the ship's privacy systems, ensuring no external monitoring could compromise the ceremony. Marcus stood outside the bathing room in simple clothes, his heart hammering. This was happening. He was about to participate in an alien bonding ritual with 4 women he'd met just hours ago. "You can still refuse," Seraphine said quietly, appearing beside him. She'd changed into a simple white robe, her silver hair unbound and flowing past her shoulders. "The consequences would be severe, but you could refuse." "Could you?" Marcus asked. "No," she admitted. "For me, there is no choice. Only different forms of bondage." "Then I won't refuse," Marcus decided. "But I promise you this, whatever happens after tonight, I'll treat you as a partner, not property." "That's worth something, isn't it?" Seraphine's hand reached out tentatively, touching his arm. Her 6 fingers were longer than human digits, her skin warm despite its alien hue. "It's worth more than you know." Inside the bathing facility, steam rose from the filled basin. Nyx, Vesper, and Aurora waited as witnesses, dressed in similar white robes. The small space felt both intimate and sacred. "We begin," Nyx announced formally. "Let the keeper and the first kept enter the waters of recognition." Marcus removed his shirt, keeping his lower garments, and stepped into the warm water. Seraphine followed, her robe falling away to reveal skin decorated with those shimmering patterns. More pronounced now in the steam and moisture dot, she produced a vial of oil, golden and fragrant. "I acknowledge your claim," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling of her hands. "I recognize you as keeper, protector, and bondmate." She poured oil into her palm and reached toward Marcus. Her touch on his shoulders was gentle, almost reverent, as she smoothed the oil across his skin. The sensation was electric, not sexual exactly, but deeply personal. Intimate in a way that transcended physical attraction. "Your turn," she whispered. Marcus took the vial, poured oil into his own palm, and repeated the gesture on Seraphine's shoulders. Her skin was softer than he expected, the pattern seeming to respond to his touch by shifting colors from deep purple to lighter lavender. "I acknowledge this bond," Marcus said, improvising since no one had given him specific words. "I recognize you as partner and person, not possession. I'll protect what you guard and honor who you are." Seraphine's eyes widened. Those weren't the traditional words, but they seemed to affect her more deeply than any ritual phrase could have. One by one, Nyx, Vesper, and Aurora entered the water, each performing their own acknowledgement anointing Marcus with oils, declaring their bond status, accepting their place in the household. Each touch built on the last, creating a strange tapestry of connection that Marcus felt settling into his chest like warm weight. When Aurora, the last, completed her acknowledgement, something changed in the air. The steam seemed to shimmer with purpose, and Marcus felt the presence of something ancient witnessing their ceremony. The heart responds, Seraphine breathed, her hand pressed against the spot where she'd hidden the artifact in her robes. Even wrapped and concealed, it pulsed with visible light, its rhythm matching Marcus's heartbeat. What does that mean? Marcus asked. It means the bond is real, Nyx said quietly. Not just legal formality. The heart recognizes your connection as genuine. They emerged from the water one by one, drying and dressing in silence, heavy with significance. Something had shifted between them. Marcus felt it in the way Seraphine looked at him now, and how the handmaidens moved around him with new ease rather than rigid formality. So it's done, Marcus said. The ceremony is complete? It's complete, Seraphine confirmed. You are now legally and spiritually bonded to me and my household. Vorin cannot challenge this, not without bringing down the wrath of every traditional family on Azura. Will that stop him? Marcus asked. Seraphine's expression darkened. No, but it will force him to be more creative in his cruelty. A sudden chime from the ship's communication system interrupted them. Vesper, already dressed, moved to answer it. Her face paled as she listened. Vorin has declared you an enemy of Azura, she reported, her voice tight. He's claiming the ceremony was invalid because it wasn't performed in a sanctified temple. He's mobilized his personal guards to take us into custody pending investigation. How long do we have? Marcus asked. They're already surrounding the port, Vesper said. Maybe an hour before they breach security. Marcus's trader instincts kicked in, running through possibilities and probabilities. Can we fight our way out? Against Vorin's guards? Aurora shook her head. They're former military. We're household staff and a merchant. It would be a massacre. Then we need a different approach, Marcus said, moving to the ship's controls. His fingers flew across the interface, pulling up port schematics and flight patterns. Vesper, you said you know spacecraft systems. How fast can you prep the engines for emergency launch? Without proper clearance? It would trigger every defense system in the port, Vesper replied. I'm aware. How fast? Vesper's expression hardened with determination. 15 minutes if Aurora helps with the power routing. Do it, Marcus commanded, then looked at Seraphine and Nyx. You, too, gather anything essential. We're leaving Azura tonight, clearance or not. Seraphine touched his arm again, that same gentle contact that now carried weight beyond simple touch. You're risking your ship, your trading license, possibly your life. For people you just met. Marcus met her silver eyes. You're not just people anymore. According to your laws, you're my bonded household. And I take care of what's mine, not because I own it, but because it matters. Something in Seraphine's expression shifted then, the last walls of her aristocratic distance crumbling. Then let's show Vorin what happens when he underestimates a human merchant and his newly bonded family. The ship came alive around them, engines humming as Vesper and Aurora worked their technical magic. Nyx secured everything that could shake loose during a hard burn, while Seraphine sealed the heart in a protected container. Marcus plotted their escape vector straight up through Azura's atmosphere, using the planet's magnetic field to scramble targeting systems. Outside? Through the viewport, Marcus could see lights approaching. Vorin's guards, moving with military precision toward the wandering star. "Engines ready," Vesper called. But Marcus, launching without clearance, they'll blacklist you across every legitimate port in this sector. "Then I guess we'll be visiting the illegitimate ones," Marcus replied, his hands steady on the controls. "Everyone strap in. This is going to be rough." Seraphine took the co-pilot's seat, her presence somehow steadying despite the chaos. "No regrets?" she asked quietly. Marcus thought about his peaceful life as a merchant, the simplicity of buying and selling goods across known space. Then he looked at the woman beside him, proud, desperate, and somehow trusting him with her life and her family's ancient burden. "Ask me again when we're not being hunted," he said with a slight smile. "Fair enough," Seraphine replied, and Marcus could swear he heard warmth in her voice. The guards reached the ship's berth as Marcus initiated launch. The wandering star roared to life, engines burning blue-white as they lifted off without clearance, without permission, without any regard for the carefully maintained order of Azura's northern port. Alarms screamed. Defense systems locked on. And Marcus Webb, former fencer-turned-merchant, now inadvertent keeper of ancient artifacts and bonded to 4 alien women, punched the throttle and aimed for the stars. Behind them, on Azura's crystalline surface, Magistrate Vorin watched the unauthorized launch with cold fury in his eyes, already planning his next move in a game that was far from over. But aboard the wandering star, as the ship broke atmosphere and the stars opened before them, Marcus felt something unexpected bloom in his chest. Not burden or obligation, but possibility. The ceremony had been about law and tradition, but what came next would be about choice. And for the first time since this chaos began, Marcus Webb was ready to choose.